Ethan Cole was 38, a structural engineer by trade and a practical man by habit. Until not long ago, he believed himself to be a good husband, the sort of man who followed the rules and kept his promises. His wife, Lena, 35, was the kind of woman everyone admired, poised, bright, and naturally magnetic. They'd been a couple for 11 years, married 7, and shared a 5-year-old son, Mason. Ethan trusted Lena without reservation. She was his partner, his closest friend, the single person he counted on above all. Or at least that's what he believed. The solid base of his life, built on faith and devotion, began to show hairline fractures when the smallest doubts appeared. One calm Saturday morning, the house held the easy promise of rest. Mason sat at the table, coloring, his small hands intent on the page. Lena cradled her coffee, humming a short tune. Sunlight poured into the room, but something felt wrong. Lena's smile had an odd hollowness. It didn't quite reach her eyes. Ethan noticed right away. "Everything okay?" he asked, keeping his tone casual, trying not to betray the worry growing inside him. "Nothing," Lena answered too quickly, tucking a lock of hair behind her ear. "You're imagining things. Are you sure you're all right?" She pecked his cheek and laughed, the sound too light, as if practiced. "You're being strange," she said, and walked away. For a moment Ethan nearly let it go. But years of inspecting buildings had trained him to spot tiny flaws. He could sense even the faintest split. Something wasn't right. Under the surface, something was shifting, about to snap. That night's sleep refused him. For the first time in their marriage, he found himself alone in their bedroom with her phone, waiting while she showered. He unlocked it, searching for anything that might explain the tension between them. There were no obvious texts, no clear evidence of betrayal. Yet one detail snagged his attention. A deleted message thread wiped clean, as if someone had deliberately scoured it away. Only one contact remained visible. A name. Alex. The name haunted him, echoing in his thoughts. It could have been anyone, a cousin, a coworker, an old friend, but the more he replayed it, the less comfortable he felt. He did not confront her. He watched, looking for hints. Lena jumped when he brushed her arm. Her laughter around Mason looked forced, as though she were rehearsing normalcy. She began to skip their date nights, suggesting family evenings instead, hiding behind their son as if his presence could cover what she wanted to conceal. Then a cruel, unbidden question surfaced. What if Mason wasn't his? The idea sickened him, and once it rooted, it would not loosen its grip. He tried to shove it away, but each glance at her made the doubt harder to deny. When Lena took Mason to stay with her sister for the weekend, Ethan acted. He found an old toddler toothbrush, placed it in a small bag with a DNA sample of his own saliva, and went to a private lab with strict instructions. No emails, no calls. He would collect the results in person. They said it would take a week. That week stretched like punishment. Lena seemed oblivious to the space growing between them. Or maybe she sensed it and chose to ignore it. She smiled too often, kissed him too gently, as though smoothing the surface of a storm she could feel building. She didn't yet know the storm was on its way. The results arrived. Ethan did not open the envelope in the car. He waited until he was home, sat at the kitchen table, the same table where Mason had once drawn dinosaurs, and unfolded the paper. The findings were blunt. Probability of paternity, 0%. He sat for a long time, chest constricted, silence pressing in. Then he rose. Lena would be back soon. When she entered the house, she was cheerful, humming, a tote slung across her shoulder. Mason barreled in ahead of her, clutching a new box of Legos. "Daddy, look, Aunt Claire gave me Legos." Ethan crouched to embrace him, throat raw. "That's great, buddy." The boy hugged him tightly. Ethan held him a beat longer, his love for Mason unchanged. Knowing the truth, however, altered everything. When Lena kissed his cheek in the kitchen, Ethan did not kiss her back. "Is everything okay?" she asked, voice airy. "Mason, go play upstairs for a bit," he told their son. Mason obeyed without question. Then Ethan faced Lena, and his voice was unervingly composed. "He isn't mine." Lena froze, her body going rigid. "You're lying," she breathed, barely audible. "No," Ethan said, placing the envelope on the counter. "This is the secret you've kept for 6 years." She didn't glance at the paper. Instead she reached for his hand, eyes wide and pleading. "Ethan, listen. It was a single mistake. We fought that night. You were on that trip and I felt abandoned. It meant nothing, I swear. Don't leave me." Her voice cracked, her knees gave, and she collapsed into sobs at his feet. "Please, Ethan, you're my life. Mason needs you. I made an awful mistake. I'll never do it again. Please." Ethan looked down at her and, for the first time, she felt like a stranger who had lived in his house, shared his nights, worn a disguise for years. He slammed the DNA paper onto the table and Lena recoiled. "I gave you everything," he said, tone flat and cold. "Every piece of our life, every sacrifice, every late hour I worked while you stayed home. You raised a child that isn't mine." She sobbed, eyes frantic. "Doesn't that mean something?" she begged. "It did," Ethan answered, voice hard as ice. "Until I understood the woman I loved wasn't who she claimed to be." He leaned nearer, his voice low and hard. "I won't shout. I won't strike you. I'm going to do worse." Lena's eyes widened with dread. "What do you mean?" she whispered. "I will make you live the consequences in full. And when I'm finished, you'll wish I had just walked away." Lena believed his anger would fade, that maybe he'd cool down, come home late one night, and they'd somehow patch things up. She was wrong. Completely wrong. That night was only the first step. Ethan had a lifetime of justice to build, one stone at a time, without her. He wasn't pleading, nor was he mourning. He was calculating. By Monday morning, Ethan had already hired Mara Kent, one of the most respected family lawyers in the state. She examined the DNA results, the marriage agreement, Mason's birth certificate, and a digital folder Ethan had been assembling. Inside were photos, texts, timelines, even a short clip from a Christmas party where Lena had whispered into another man's ear just feet from Ethan. It wasn't definitive proof of an affair, but with paternity fraud undeniable, more evidence wasn't necessary. "We can sue for fraud," Mara said, tapping the DNA report with her pen. "That will cancel her claim to alimony. And depending on the custody hearing, we can also push for a non-parent custody petition." Ethan already knew his course. This wasn't about petty revenge. It was about Mason, the boy who'd already lost too much. Though Mason wasn't his by blood, Ethan's heart had claimed him long ago. Filing for full parental rights was a deliberate choice. No joint custody, no shared authority. The reasons were clear: fraud, emotional damage, and Lena's betrayal. The papers were harsh, but they matched the cold resolve inside him. When they were served at Lena's office, she called him in tears, her voice ragged. "You're erasing me from Mason's life." "No," Ethan said flatly. "You did that when you lied to both of us." Before marriage, Lena had nothing to her name. She had depended on Ethan. His paycheck, his stability, his trust. Now, with proof Mason wasn't his child, everything collapsed. The prenuptial contract they had signed became ironclad. She lost all claim to the house, the investments, and any say in Mason's schooling or health. No alimony. No support. No shield left. Desperate, she threatened to expose him publicly. Ethan's reply was calm, sharp. "Try it. I'll release every page of the DNA results." Weeks passed. Ethan stayed professional, controlled, unshaken. Then one evening Lena appeared outside his office. Her eyes were swollen, her clothes loose, her frame thin. She looked wrecked. "You win," she whispered. "I can't fight. You've taken everything." "I haven't touched you," Ethan answered, voice steady. "I just told the truth. And the truth has claws." She crumbled again, but this time her tears weren't manipulative. They were raw, stripped of games. Ethan felt nothing. "Please," she begged, trembling. "Tell me what you want." Ethan stepped closer, calm and deliberate. I want you to remember this. The next time Mason looks at you and asks why we aren't together, you'll have to decide if you'll lie again or if you'll finally be brave enough to tell him the truth. Understand something. I'm his father not because of blood but because I chose him. The divorce was finalized swiftly, less than 3 months, thanks to Mara Kent. The case was airtight. Lena signed everything. No alimony, no rights to the house, no authority in Mason's life. At first, she was granted only supervised visits. Mason never heard the details. But children sense what adults don't say. He felt the shift even if he couldn't name it. The home grew calmer, quieter, just the two of them. One night, curled under the blankets, Mason whispered, "Is Mommy okay?" "She's okay," Ethan answered softly. "But she's not living here anymore." Mason frowned. "Did she do something bad?" Ethan hesitated, brushed back his son's hair and said gently, "She made a mistake. But you're safe. That's what matters." Mason hugged him tight. "You're my best friend, Dad." The words pierced Ethan not with pain, but with a deep, unshakable truth. He hadn't lost a child. He had chosen one. And Mason had chosen him in return. Months later, Lena called. The conversation was brief, heavy with silence. She didn't apologize. That chance had long passed. "He still calls you Dad," she whispered. "Even after counseling. Even when I remind him. Doesn't it bother you that he's not really yours?" Ethan stared out the window at the crooked birdhouse Mason had built in the yard. "He is mine," Ethan replied calmly. "Because I show up. Because I protect him. Because I stayed." Pause lingered. Then Lena murmured, "He'll always love you more." "I didn't do this to win," Ethan said firmly. "I did it because you shattered something that can't be fixed." He heard her crying quietly on the line. But sympathy never came. "He's fine. And so am I," Ethan said and ended the call. Life moved forward. Ethan never revealed the whole truth to Mason. Maybe someday if Mason asked he would. But by then it wouldn't matter. Because fatherhood wasn't about DNA. It was about showing up every single day. Each time Mason called him Dad, Ethan knew the deepest truth of all. He hadn't gained custody through the courts or vengeance, but through love. A love that endured. A love that chose to stay when everything else collapsed. Lena had begged for mercy. Ethan gave her justice. And the sharpest revenge of all was not in her ruin, but in his better life without her. A life built not on lies but on truth.